Before video games were a big, flashy business, they were just a tiny spark in a laboratory. Imagine scientists in the 1950s and in the 1960s surrounded by giant room-filling computers. These machines weren't built for fun. They were built for serious work, calculating missile paths, solving complex math problems. But a few curious minds wondered, what if we could use these screens for something else? What if we could use them to play? One of the very first games was called Tennis for Two. It was created in 1958 by physicist William Higginbotham. He wanted to liven up visitor day at his lab. Players used a knob and a button to hit a little dot of light back and forth over a line. But for the people who lined up to play it, it was pure magic. They were controlling something on a screen for the very first time. Another famous early game was Space War, created by students at MIT in 1962 on a computer that cost more than a house. Two players controlled tiny triangular spaceships flying around a star in the middle of the screen. They had to avoid the star's gravity while trying to shoot torpedoes at each other. It was a simple concept, but it was thrilling. Space War became a hit among a small community of programmers who copied and shared it with other universities. These first games were the quiet beginnings of a massive explosion, the first few notes of a song that would be heard around the world. The creators weren't trying to start an industry. They were just playing, experimenting, sharing their creations with friends. They proved computers could be more than tools for work. They could be gateways to new worlds, places of challenge, sources of incredible fun. That simple idea, that a screen and some code could create joy, was the foundation upon which everything else would be built, one glowing pixel at a time. The magic of video games couldn't stay locked in laboratories forever. In the early 1970s, a new kind of place started popping up in shopping malls, bowling alleys, corner stores: the video arcade. It was a dark, noisy, and wonderful place, lit by the glow of dozens of screens. The air buzzed with the electronic sounds of lasers, explosions, cheerful theme music. For the price of a single quarter, you could step into another world. The game that started it all was Pong. Released in 1972 by a brand new company called Atari, its genius was its simplicity. The machine had a screen showing two paddles and a ball. Players would twist a dial to move their paddle up and down, trying to hit the square ball past their opponent. Pong was a sensation. People lined up to play, and soon the machines were making so many quarters that they would jam. One of the most important was Space Invaders, which arrived from Japan in 1978. Instead of playing against a friend, you were defending the Earth from endless rows of alien creatures marching down the screen. The aliens would speed up as you defeated them, and a thumping, heartbeat-like sound would get faster and faster, raising the tension. Space Invaders created a sense of pressure and excitement that was completely new. Games like Pac-Man, released in 1980, brought in a whole new audience, including many girls and women, with its cute character and non-violent gameplay of munching dots in a maze. Then came Donkey Kong in 1981, which introduced a hero named Jumpman, who would later be renamed Mario, trying to rescue a damsel from a giant ape. These games weren't just about high scores. They had characters and simple stories. The arcade became a social hub, a place where you could challenge your friends, put your initials on the high score list, and be part of a vibrant, growing culture of gamers. The fun of the arcade was amazing, but you always had to leave and go home. People started to wonder, what if you could bring that magic into your own living room? A company named Atari had the answer. In 1977, they released the Atari 2600. This was a game changer. It was a home console, a small box you could connect to your television. Instead of just one game, it played many different games that came on cartridges. You could swap them out anytime you wanted. 1 minute you could be playing a space shooter, and the next you could be exploring a dungeon. The Atari 2600 brought video games to the family. Suddenly, the TV was not just for watching shows, it was a portal to adventure. The graphics were simple blocks of color, and the sounds were basic beeps and boops, but it didn't matter. Your imagination filled in the gaps. In the game Adventure, a simple square block became a brave knight, and a jerky, duck-like dragon became a terrifying monster. In combat, you and a friend could control tanks and planes, battling it out right there on the living room carpet. It was a new way for families and friends to play together. Games on the Atari 2600 became cultural icons. Space Invaders, the arcade hit, was a massive seller for the console. Other games like Pitfall created a new kind of experience. You controlled a character, Pitfall Harry, who had to run and jump, swinging on vines, avoiding crocodiles, and leaping over scorpions. However, the incredible success of Atari also led to a big problem. So many companies rushed to make games for the 2600 that the market became flooded with bad ones. The most famous failure was the game based on the movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial. It was so confusing and poorly made that it became a symbol of the industry's problems. People stopped buying games, and by 1983, the video game industry in America crashed. It seemed like the magic might be over for good. Just when it looked like home video games were a forgotten fad, a hero emerged from an unexpected place: Japan. A toy company named Nintendo had a bold plan. They realized the problem wasn't games themselves, it was bad games turning players off. In 1985, Nintendo released the NES in North America. To avoid Atari's mistakes, Nintendo was very careful. They insisted each game had to be good, stamped with a Nintendo seal of quality. That promise rebuilt trust with players. The NES sold a world of adventure, led by a cheerful plumber in a red hat. The pack-in game, Super Mario Bros., changed everything. A side-scrolling platformer, you controlled Mario on a quest to rescue Princess Peach from Bowser. The world was colorful and full of secrets. You could stomp on enemies, break blocks, find a super mushroom, made you bigger, find a fire flower, shoot fireballs. It felt massive compared to single-screen classics. Super Mario Bros. Was just the beginning. The Legend of Zelda offered a huge world called Hyrule. You played as Link, gathering items, solving dungeon puzzles, fighting monsters to save a princess. Zelda introduced battery saves and cartridges, so adventures could last days or weeks. Games became epic journeys, not quick diversions. Nintendo kicked off a new golden age for home gaming. Iconic franchises and characters became household names. Metroid gave dark, atmospheric alien exploration. Contra delivered intense two-player action. The NES controller's simple directional pad and A/B buttons set the standard. Nintendo saved the industry and defined home play, creating a generation who'd remember Mushroom Kingdom and Hyrule for life. For years, video games existed in a flat world. Characters could only move left, right, up, down. It was like playing with paper dolls on a flat piece of paper. But then, in the mid-1990s, a technological leap happened as significant as the jump from silent films to movies with sound. Developers created worlds in 3 dimensions, 3D. Suddenly, you weren't just watching a game, you were inside it. You could run forward, look around corners, explore environments that felt solid and real. The console that brought 3D to the masses was the Nintendo 64, released in 1996. Nintendo redefined what's possible with their star plumber. Super Mario 64 was a masterpiece of 3D design. For the first time, you could control Mario in an open space, run in circles, do a triple jump, crawl quietly past a sleeping piranha plant, explore giant paintings that served as portals, collect power stars. Freedom of movement was breathtaking and set the standard for 3D platformers. Mario wasn't the only hero to go 3D. On the N64, Link journeyed into the 3rd dimension in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, 1998. It's still considered one of the greatest games ever. Vast Hyrule to explore on horseback, an epic story spanning time, a clever targeting system for 3D combat. The world had a day-night cycle and NPC schedules. It felt less like a game and more like a place you could visit. 3D didn't only affect exploration, it changed every genre. Racing games like Mario Kart 64 added hills, tunnels, huge jumps. Shooters evolved into first-person shooters. See the world through the character's eyes. GoldenEye 007 became a legend on the N64, largely for its 4-player split-screen mode. Friends on a couch chasing each other through detailed levels, creating chaotic, hilarious memories that defined a generation. While Nintendo was busy perfecting 3-dimensional platforming, a new competitor entered the ring and really changed the game. That competitor was Sony, the PlayStation. Released in 1995, the PlayStation used compact discs, or CDs, instead of cartridges. This was a huge deal. CDs could hold far more information than cartridges. That meant games could have longer, more complex stories, beautiful pre-rendered cutscenes, high-quality music. The PlayStation positioned itself as the cooler, more mature console appealing to teenagers and young adults. It became a home for cinematic stories and new genres. Games like Final Fantasy VII, released in 1997, showed the CD's power. A massive RPG that spanned 3 discs, telling a deep emotional story about saving the planet. Movie-like cutscenes and complex characters. Unlike anything before. It proved games could have the emotional weight of films and helped popularize JRPGs worldwide. It was a game you didn't just play, you experienced it. Survival horror also found a home on PlayStation. Resident Evil, 1996, trapped players in a creepy mansion full of zombies. It used fixed camera angles, like security cameras. That created dread. You never knew what was around the next corner. It felt like playing a horror movie. Then came Metal Gear Solid, 1998, which pioneered stealth. You played as Solid Snake, sneaking through a military base, avoiding guards instead of fighting them head-on. A game built on tension and strategy. PlayStation's success established Sony as a major force. It introduced iconic characters in series: Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, Crash Bandicoot. The library meant there was something for everyone. Epic stories, scary adventures, fast-paced racing like Gran Turismo, quirky platformers. The rivalry between Nintendo 64 and PlayStation defined the late 90s, pushing both companies to innovate and giving players an incredible array of games. For decades, playing video games with friends meant being in the same room, huddled around the same screen. But as the internet grew more common in homes at the turn of the millennium, a new frontier opened up. This was the era of online gaming. Suddenly, you could play with and against people from all over the world. Your opponents were no longer just your friends or the computer's AI. They were real people sitting in their own homes, miles or even continents away. This connection transformed gaming from a local hobby into a global community. Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, and especially Microsoft's Xbox. The Xbox launched in 2001 with a game that would define online multiplayer for a generation. Halo Combat evolved. While its single-player campaign was epic, its multiplayer mode was revolutionary. Players could connect their Xbox consoles together for huge LAN parties or use the Xbox Live service to battle it out online. The feeling of coordinating with your team to capture the flag or competing in a Slayer deathmatch against skilled human opponents was a powerful and addictive new thrill. On the PC, this online revolution was happening on an even grander scale with a new type of game, the massively multiplayer online role-playing game, or MMORPG. Games like EverQuest and Ultima Online had already created persistent online worlds, but it was World of Warcraft, released in 2004, that brought the genre to millions. Players created a custom character, maybe an orc warrior, a human mage, or an elven hunter, and entered the vast, sprawling world of Azeroth. This world existed 24/7, even when you weren't playing. You could team up with dozens of other players to take on gigantic dragons, or just hang out with friends and explore. These online worlds created powerful social bonds. In games like World of Warcraft, players formed guilds, which were like clubs or teams. Online gaming wasn't just about competition, it was about cooperation, community, and belonging. It added a rich social layer to gaming that made the experience deeper and more meaningful than ever before. For a long time, high-quality gaming was tied to a television or a computer monitor. Handheld consoles like the Nintendo Game Boy and DS made gaming portable. Then, in the late 2000s, a new device put a powerful gaming machine into nearly everyone's pocket: the smartphone. The Apple iPhone launched in 2007. The App Store arrived a year later. These games were cheaper, simpler, and built for short bursts, while waiting for a bus, on a lunch break, relaxing on the couch. The early days used the new touchscreen in clever ways. Angry Birds, released in 2009, was a perfect example. The simple act of pulling back a slingshot with your finger was incredibly satisfying. Fruit Ninja let you swipe to slice flying fruit. These games were easy for anyone to pick up, kids to grandparents. They brought gaming to a massive new audience. As smartphones became more powerful, games grew more complex. Developers started bringing console-quality experiences to mobile. Sprawling open-world adventures, intense multiplayer shooters, deep strategy games. Games like Clash of Clans introduced a new model. The game was free to play, but players could spend real money to speed up their progress, or buy cosmetic items. That free-to-play model went on to dominate mobile gaming. Today, mobile gaming is the biggest part of the video game industry. Pokémon Go turned the real world into a playground. Social games like Among Us became global phenomena. The smartphone has made gaming more accessible and integrated into daily life. It's a constant source of entertainment, connection, and fun, ready at a moment's notice. Thank you for watching The History of Things. If you enjoyed this video, please let us know your suggestions for future topics in the comments below. We love hearing from you and want to make videos you care about.